I heard a T. There it is. Hi, I'm Alita Warden, and I represent the religionist side of the argument.
I'm Allison Lansdell, and I represent the religion side of the argument.
I'm Lindsay Sparks, and I represent the humanist side of the argument.
And we're waiting for Amy Blaylock, who is coming on momentarily, hopefully.
Yes. In a modern world, we need to let go of traditions that no longer serve a purpose. Religion is now obsolete. We have science and technologies that our forefathers didn't have. We need to stop using the influence of outdated ideas to make judgments and to create laws and policies. Humans, people, make up society. We need to make sure that we're doing everything to keep the order of the government and the power of the society moving. When the United States was first established and we were declaring our independence from Great Britain, the Declaration of Independence states that all men have, quote, certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, end quote. This means that as Americans and as citizens of this world, we're entitled to happiness. We're entitled to live life as we see fit, and all people should be respected for their choices and to be given the right to decide for themselves what is right and what is wrong for their lives. We shouldn't be using religion to create laws and policies because it only is one-sided. We can't just create laws and policies based on people who are only caring about themselves and not thinking about everyone else who doesn't have an idea of religion in their lives. There are more than just religious people in America, and we need to make sure that we are taking care of the needs of every person and making sure that all people are happy in their lives.
Thank you for your side of the argument. The United States was founded on religious freedoms, as you said, and the Constitution protects religious freedoms. In fact, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution protects citizens from laws which would prohibit the freedom to exercise their religion, both the right to choose our religious beliefs and affiliations, as well as our right to exercise and practice those beliefs. The Founding Fathers were Christians, and that they believed in some doctrines of Jesus Christ. And sorry, I just got distracted for a second. And believed the Bible to be the Word of God. Although some were more religious than others, they placed God prominently throughout the country's laws and directions. In fact, at the Jefferson Memorial, God's name was mentioned numerous times, including the Jefferson's famous quote, God who gave us life, gave us liberty. Can the liberties of the nation be secured when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gift from God? In the reading room of the Library of Congress, there was a bronze statue of Moses holding the Ten Commandments. On the ceiling is a painting that shows a young Israeli woman raising her hands in prayer to God, and there's also Bible quotes on the walls. At the United States Supreme Court building, the Ten Commandments are located in several different places, including carved in the front of the building. A statue of Moses leaning his arm on the Ten Commandments is also prominent. The commandments are also on the wall above the judge's courtroom bench. These are evidence that religion was prominently a part of the fabric of the country. Even with all these references to God in federal buildings, there are some judges who say the country shouldn't allow these references to God in religious places. To God and religion in places of government. In the United States, freedom of conscience and religion are being eroded, not by laws propagated through the legislative process, but by judicial activism, which is a term describing judges who overreach their jurisdiction by creating laws from the bench that meet their own personal bias rather than merely interpreting the law as is their constitutional prescribed role. Nearly every decision in the court will break down to whether the judge believes that what the Constitution really says, or whether they're going to rewrite it according to their dictates and will. Inscribed in the Daughters of the American Revolution building, it has Proverbs 22, verse 8. Remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set. I think that's pretty poignant for what they're trying to do. The Founding Fathers recognized the natural right to religious self-determination, that people, being their own ultimate sovereign, should be allowed to pass laws which limit the government's ability to restrict the practice of religion. While differences in various faiths are recognized, tolerance of different faiths is accepted and socially encouraged, including tolerance for the humanist and agnostic, and atheist mindset. Citizens of the United States are free to worship or not, how, where, and what they may. Amy? Oh, we're still waiting. Does it have where you can pause? The live? Oh. We could have Allison go and do her part, I guess, and then maybe she'll be on after Allie's part.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Okay. You ready?
When you are.
Religious freedom is fundamental to the existence of our nation and is the most fundamental civil right and civil liberty. By placing protection of religious freedom in the first part of the First Amendment shows that the Founding Fathers were concerned about it. Religious freedom is fundamental to our sense of identity as a nation. Dallin H. Oaks reminds us that there is a growing anti-religious bigotry in the United States. We are concerned that diminishing influences of religion and religious principles in our society, because the teachings of religion strengthens society. The teachings of Christ encourage honesty, morality, to be a good citizen, and to give service to one another, among our other teachings. The traditional religious values teach us that Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world. It teaches the principles of faith, prayer, repentance, forgiveness, respect, love, compassion, work, and wholesome recreational activities. The teachings of Jesus Christ encourage traditional families, which are important to a stable society. Traditional religious values encourage two-parent homes with a mother and a father. They teach us that we are made in the image of God. We have a divine purpose and potential, and of the sacredness of life. Traditional religious values encourage virtue, fidelity, monogamy, and that the sacred power of procreation are to be employed only within the bonds of marriage. It teaches us that mothers and fathers, we have sacred responsibilities to our children and to the Lord.
Okay, so some of the main arguments of our humanist manifesto of our side are that religion is an outdated way to create public policy. It doesn't it it doesn't take into account people who don't believe in God or religion. It doesn't take into account the different ways that people could be happy, such as people who would like to marry someone of the same sex. It doesn't take into account that of the separation of church and state. There's so much importance that people are not taking into account of the separation of church and state because we can't have religion in our laws because not all people believe in religion. Of the humanist way, also another main point of ours is that we need to make sure that people are being taught that. Not that people are being taught. We need to make sure that people don't I need a second because I'm kind of freaking out.
That their rights aren't violated?
Yes, thank you. So with people, our other main arguments are that people who are on the more side of adding religion into public policy, they have this utopian view and promises that just aren't really going to happen, and that it's just ideological and it's not going to happen. And we need to another main argument is that we need to make sure that all people are learning morals and values from their families and from a society as a whole. And morals and values come from teachings, not necessarily from religion. Considering the fact that people who aren't religionists also are now don't commit murder. People who don't have religions, they also will have the same values as people who do. Another argument of the humanist side is that people need to be treated with dignity, and that making sure that people who aren't religious still are protected by the law in their happiness, and that their goals and dreams are still protected. And the humanist side also believes that there is an importance of moral equality that it just doesn't seem to have with religionists. Like, all people should be considered equal to have the same rights, such as, whether you're gay or straight or age or whatever, you should all have equal rights and be able to have the same says.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job for winging it. Okay, I'll try not to mess you up too much with my questions. Oh, you go first with questions, I guess. So you're still on.
Okay. So why is having religious freedom, more important than caring about the rights of everybody, regardless of their religion?
It's not that we don't care about the rights, but we're just saying the rights are protected of all people. If you want to practice religion, you should be allowed to do so. If you don't want to practice a religion, you should be allowed to do so. We're respecters of all rights. We just want to make sure that our rights are protected and guaranteed as they are in the Constitution, and that the Constitution doesn't get changed, that it remains as it is to allow everyone the same rights.
But in public policies and things like that, a lot of the times it takes into account the religious teachings that we know, such as a lot of the times, with the gay marriage, that debate that comes up, a lot of the times things of that nature are backed up by religious things, quotes from the Bible and things like that. Why should we why should we even listen to that type of debate and take into account the ideas of religion when creating public policy?
We're not saying that they shouldn't. I mean, if they want to have a civil union or some type of recognition, they should be allowed to do that. We're just saying that it shouldn't be called marriage. Marriage is performed by religious leaders to join two people between each other and with God, and make a reunion. Sorry, a three-part prong to that union. So we're just saying that, and we believe that gay people should have the right to make decisions as far as the health of their partner, or they should be able to inherit from their partner, things like that. We're just saying that it shouldn't be called marriage.
Okay. So, I mean, people that are religious, they have the ideas that they do, and a lot of people, what about teaching children in public schools? I mean, shouldn't we be teaching them more on the ways of what we've known in science versus adding creationism into our public school systems and laws and policies for that type of thing? Since some parents wouldn't believe in teaching their children about God, but shouldn't we teach them about things that we're studying in science, whether they be theories or laws?
Unfortunately, that's already happened. They have removed the premise of the creation, and they've replaced that with the theory of evolution, which is only a theory. It can't be proven. And so they've already replaced that, and they've already taken God out of schools, and any references to God. Children can no longer practice their religious freedoms in schools. They can't pray publicly. They can't. There's no longer even a moment of silence for silent prayer or meditation. So as far as public schools go, the humanists have already effectively replaced any type of religion and negated our rights to having our children practice religion in schools, even when it's directed by a student rather than a administrator or a teacher or someone like that.
Okay. What about discrimination about people of different ages? Because there's a lot of people who want to give rights to children and things of that nature, and there are some children out there who are abused and things of that nature. And shouldn't children be given rights to stand up against people who are harming them or situations that they don't feel comfortable in, even if it's with their own parents?
Allison, you want to take that one?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I'm talking about discrimination of age and children, and I was asking if you believed that children should have rights to be able to stand up against people who are abusing them, or they feel that they're in a situation that they shouldn't be in, even if it's like with their own parents.
They should have rights, and they do. There are many programs out there that protect children, like there's social services and stuff that intervene. But if regular good citizens aren't aware of what's going on, then there's no way that we can help children. if it's going on behind closed doors, there's no way that we're going to be in tune with what's going on in people's homes. Like if they go tell a therapist, or if they go tell a church member, or if they go tell their best friend, then some way that they will be able to have people to help them intervene. But if it's happening behind closed doors, there's really not much that can be done if it's not made known.
So there already are laws in place to protect the children, and so they do have rights as far as protection, and we do believe in that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Lindsay, hang on, here we go. Okay, you believe that religion had a place in history, but it's no longer necessary. Why would that be? If it was important in shaping the country, why would it be obsolete now?
Just because it was created for a long time ago when we didn't have the technology, we didn't have the science, we didn't have the things that we do now. As a society now, we know many things that they didn't know in the past that they needed explanation for. In our day and age, we don't need that anymore. It's become obsolete. It just is unnecessary to include in our policies because now that our values and things are ingrained into us in traditions through, learning of those values. And other than that, I mean, religion has pretty much become obsolete, especially in creating public policy, because there are more different ideas and people have broadened their knowledge and are more accepting of different ideas than just creationism.
Okay. If religious humanists regard the universe as not being created and that man is a part of nature and that he has emerged as a result of the continuous process, as you know, science is used to prove or disprove something through observation. Evolution is a theory and is in an extremely loose sense of the word, because scientific theories must be proven by collection of data. The theory of evolution was never observed. So how can you defend that position?
Okay, so we know that our DNA and monkey DNA is very, very close together. We can see that, and over time we have evidence of people who are like human, but like the Neanderthals and things of that nature. So we can see over time that we have changed, and even now, like we can see in our own histories that we've become more intellectually advanced through technologies and things of that nature. So as humans, just based totally on the intellectual side only, we can see that there have been amazing intellectual advances, and even in these last 20 years, we can see a big intellectual advance because our environment held a need for it.
Okay. Humanists do not deny the possibility of realities as yet undiscovered. So would you agree that God may be a reality undiscovered?
That's a really good question. The only way to really prove something like that would be to die, and no one's gonna come back from death and be like, oh yeah, totally, I know everything about what happens after death. But to believe in something that there's no way we can even begin to prove it while we're here now alive, it's not something that we can even think about perceiving, so there's no point in trying to use the influence of something that there's no evidence of for, especially for things like public policy and laws.
I have a question. So you said in your opening statement that we need to be teaching people morals and like values and standards and stuff. What are means that you can do that other than religion? Because in my religion, I am taught that from day one. So where do you think people can get taught that other than a religious side?
That's a good question, and a lot of people's religions do teach morals and values and things of that nature, but people who aren't religious at all have the same morals and values because that is how they've been taught. And we as a society can have good morals and good values without religion. People can still learn and teach each other about, like love and happiness and things of that nature without putting a background on it of having a creation of God.
So if you're saying that there are places in religion that you can learn values and morals and all that kind of stuff, then why take it away when it's working and helping out society?
Because they're the same morals and values that are being taught in other people without religion. They're the same ones. It's not necessary anymore because it's become part of tradition and it's become part of people's lives already. There's no reason to keep having religion to teach the same values and morals that are being taught already without it.
Okay. Religious humanists maintain that all association and institutions exist for the fulfillment of human life. Further, religious humanists consider the complete realization of human personality to be the end of man's life and seek its development and fulfillment here and now. That's part of your statement in your manifesto. In supporting abortion, aren't you denying the life of a child the chance to seek its development and fulfillment?
Good question. No, we would not be denying the life of a child because it is not yet a life. When abortion takes place, the child is not alive. It is only alive because of the mother. If we were to take a fetus out, it could not live on its own. It would die. So in that sense, like birth being, the point of would make that not taking a life.
Okay. We won't get into the whole abortion argument, but they've had a viability at 22 weeks of, but they're also committing abortions at the same age. So, just as an aside. Okay, one last question, Lindsay, and then I'll get you off the hook. While we don't, okay, so the humanist position says while they don't approve exploitive and degenerative forms of sexual expression, neither do they wish to prohibit laws or social sanctions regarding sexual behavior between consenting adults. Moral education for children and adults is an important way of developing awareness and sexual maturity, says the Humanist Manifesto. And it says, short of harming others or compelling them to do likewise, individuals should be permitted to express their sexual proclivities and pursue their lifestyle as they desire. The element of moral equality must be furthered through elimination of all discrimination based upon race, religion, sex, age, and national origin. This means equality of opportunity and recognition of talent and merit. So, humanist children, based on the principle of moral equality, are afforded equal opportunity and recognition through moral education and the development of sexual awareness and maturity. This is all according to the manifesto. So what if a child, let's say 12-year-old, decides to have sex with a 32-year-old man? That would be okay because we can't eliminate their moral equality or eliminate their discrimination or through the principle of moral equality must be further through elimination of discrimination, even based on age. So that being the case, a 12-year-old would be okay if they felt they were morally and age appropriate to have sex with a 32-year-old. That'd be okay?
I assume, I mean, if the 12-year-old wants to establish their sexual maturity and they feel like that's what they should be doing, I think that's what they should be doing. I guess.
Sorry, I know that was a hard one. I said this is going to throw her for a loop. Poor thing. Okay. That's what the humanists believe.
Yes, exactly. Totally. So this is kind of where the rights of the child come in, because then you could say along the lines of, if the child feels comfortable in that type of situation, then that's what the type of situation they should feel comfortable in. And if they don't feel comfortable in that situation, then they have the right to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And what you said is exactly what is written in the manifesto, and that's exactly right. If that's how they feel their sexual and emotional maturity level is, then I mean, there's no discrimination. Except for, of course, we still believe in upholding the law, and at that point, that 32-year-old would be accountable for, statutory rape or whatever it is that would hold him accountable. But I mean, we don't believe in breaking the laws, but in changing the law, I don't think that would be changed, to be honest, even though like it does say no discrimination based on age and things like that. But there is a type of emotional and sexual maturity that comes with age, and that, a 12-year-old, we all know as adults, just doesn't have. So I don't think that would actually change in the law, but in an older person, like, 16, 17, they'd be older and have a bit more of maturity to make sure that they decide what's right for them in a decision like that.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay.
So your closing statement is where we're at.
Yes. So in closing, I would just like to say that we should still afford rights to people without discrimination. We should make sure that we are not including religion in public policy or in laws. We should make sure that we are abiding by the Declaration of Independence, that all people are that have the unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We need to make sure that all people have the right to their own individual self, their own bodies, their own ideas, and all people should have the right to do what they deem to be fitting for their own life and happiness, and the law should protect that. We should make sure that we are effectively using the separation of church and state, meaning that we do not use religion when discussing anything having to do with morals or discussing human actions and responsibilities. and that all people have the rights to their sexuality, and that all people have the rights to their lives as far as marriage and divorce. We need to make sure that we all have the knowledge of evolving, and to make sure that we understand that people can come from evolution, and that all people can decide for themselves what is right and wrong for their own lives, because this is all part of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness.
Okay.
My turn?
Allison?
Okay. We believe that religious freedom is essential and is the most fundamental civil right and civil liberty for the existence of our nation. Placing the clause for the protection of religious freedom in the first part of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution shows that the Founding Fathers were concerned about citizens' religious freedom. The teachings of religion strengthen society by encouraging honesty, morality, good citizenship, and services to one another. We believe that as mothers and fathers we have a sacred responsibility to our children and each other. Professor Dinesh D. I don't know his last name. Schwanz reminds us
Dinesh D'Souza, sorry.
the attempts to ground respect for equality on a purely secular basis ignores the vital contribution by Christianity to its spreads. It is folly to believe that it could survive without the continuing aid of religious belief. Humanists agree that the separation of church and state and the separation of an ideology and state are imperatives, and that it should not favor or espouse a single ideology. I would submit to you that humanism is an ideology, and one that would be harmful to society and ultimately families. In closing, I would like you to consider a quote by the founder of the province of Pennsylvania, William Penn, who stated, "Men must be governed by God, or they will be ruled by tyrants."
All right.
Okay, so glad that's over.
You did great, Lindsay. Good job.
That was so hard.
And then we have those two other questions.
Yeah, the wrap up still. So the first question is, do you think the authors of your article was taking the moral high ground or making a moral statement? Why or why not? I pretty much think, I'm sorry, someone is texting. Okay. So I think that the Humanist Manifesto, they're pretty much trying to take the moral high ground and being like, you know, we don't have religion, but we care about people more type of a stance. Like when I was reading it, they were like, we have a more broader idea than religious people do. More, and like they make themselves, like the Humanist Manifesto, it was like more of you know, we are more advanced than religious people. Like we are beyond that type of a stance.
Yeah, I think that kind of shows that they were kind of arrogant and like, this is what we believe, and it's not really like kind of taken the moral high ground. It's like, this is the way it is, and this is kind of what we. So I don't think they were kind of equal. Whereas Elder Oaks actually gave 5 points of counsel when how to conduct ourselves to enhance religious freedoms, you know, during periods of turmoil and challenge, like when Prop 8 was happening. You know, that we should speak with patience and understanding and compassion towards our adversaries, even though we don't agree. Doesn't mean that we have to be ugly and be disrespectful to them. And then that we should, but we, you know, that doesn't mean that we need to be deterred or coerced into silence, and that we should have should also have freedom from retaliation. Like, we shouldn't have our tires slashed because we believe something different, or we shouldn't, you know, have, you know, we agree that they should be respected and shown patience and understanding and compassion, and we should have that same thing reciprocated to us, and that all of us should be able to talk about our dictates, our conscience dictates, of whether we believe in the humanist, you know, side of it or the other side of it. We should be able to have that freedom of religion and freedom of speech to advocate for our position.
I mean, you guys know I don't really believe in the humanist.
No, we know, but you're doing a great job in defending it, I must say.
It's so hard, especially for like all of Amy's parts, because like she I guess she kind of bailed, but I mean, I was just like, okay.
I know, and I threw hard questions in there, so that wasn't fair as much. You know, if you don't believe it, it's hard to defend it.
I got it.
You did good.
Well, I tried very hard.
You did very good.
But yeah, I love Elder Oaks. I think he always has such smart things to say, and especially, I mean, he's like a judge, you know, in the Supreme Court for Utah, right? Something like that.
Right.
And so, I mean, he knows about religion or about laws and policies and stuff like that. You know, that's not new to him at all. I mean, he's really, really smart. So, I mean, I love hearing a talk like that from him about, you know, the Constitution and people's rights and things of that nature, because, I mean, it's coming from not only, you know, a prophet or, like, you know, a servant of God, but of a judge, you know, of someone that knows what he's talking about. It's not just someone getting up there, you know, saying this is what I believe and I don't know anything about how to make public policy or law. I mean, he really knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I love hearing from him. He's very smart. And so...
Yeah, I think it's, you know, important, too, where he said Latter-day Saints must be careful never to support or act upon the idea that a person must subscribe to a particular set of religious beliefs. And, you know, that's kind of how we said on our discussion board, how, you know, it's important that we don't have a national religion, you know, like, you know, that everybody be Lutheran, because that would trample on the rights and dictates of another human being to believe freely what they believe. Like, you know, we had said in our discussion board, the 11th Article of Faith, we believe that everyone should practice it as according to their conscience and their beliefs.
Right, and I mean, you commented on what I said too about how, you know, if we were like everyone needs to be Mormon, then, I mean, and I said, well, at that point, you know, the President of the United States, whether they, you know, consciously wanted to or not, they're going to be taking the advice of the prophet, and he's going to be practically running the country. I mean, like I said, not that that would be super, super terrible or anything, just because, or we wouldn't think it would be terrible, but, I mean, other people would think it would be a disaster. So, I mean, you're right, it would just trample on the rights of other people, whether or not, you know, we wanted it to be like that or not.
I was really surprised at how early the humanists wrote their manifesto and kind of came up with these, to us, out there ideas, because at that point in the country, most people were religious and didn't have real crazy out there ideas, but apparently some people did, and it's only furthered and come, you know, to add more guidelines that are, like, you know, specific, that are you know, we believe in abortion, we believe in same-sex marriage, or, you know, gay rights. And I mean, it's very specific now, where before you could see the framework, but it wasn't as specific. So you can see they've come a long way in the last 50, 60 years.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would read the Humanist Manifesto and be like, yes, this is exactly what society needs to be like. This is absolutely right. And I think that there's a lot of people who would agree with that, who would just totally ride along with it and think it was the best thing ever.
Kind of scary. And the last question is, are religious folks the only ones with values and morals? And we had talked about that in our questions. It says, can morality exist without religion? Why or why not?
I mean, I honestly do believe, I mean, like, even though, like, Allison and I, she asked me these questions, but I mean, I honestly do believe that people who aren't religion or don't have religions have values and morals. I mean, my dad and my grandparents, they're like the least religious people ever, but my grandma still is like all about, you know, family and stuff like that. My dad is also, you know, they're all about, you know, we value family and, you know, things of that nature. And I mean, they don't have religion, or they don't even know what the first thing about any type of religion, except, you know, like the basic of, you know, Adam and Eve or something. But they don't really know anything. They don't have any sort of idea, but they still have values and morals, which probably did stem from, you know, teaching of religion, you know, from their parents and their grandparents and things of that nature. But I mean, even it is kind of ingrained into people now of what it is to be a moral person, what it is to have value. It is pretty ingrained into people, and I do think that. So I mean, I think that morality can exist without religion, but I think that, like, I mean, if like, for example, if like I didn't have religion, I know I wouldn't be like where I am right now. I would have made several of other decisions in my life before.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, you know, probably your grandma's that way because that's the way she was taught, and your dad's that way because your grandma taught him. But as we start to water down those moral beliefs and we start to blur those lines, I think at some point, if we did have the humanist approach and issues, those would get watered down as time went on and eventually just be eroded away. I mean, we've already seen the erosion of a lot of things that protect family policy, or policies that protect families, and I think those would just continue to be eroded away and just continue to be farther from where they are now. You know, like my sister and I were talking, Allison's mom, and we were talking about how, you know, back in when I was little, you couldn't even have on I Love Lucy, you couldn't have Ricky and Lucy in the same bed. They had twin beds. And you couldn't say she was pregnant. And we've gone so much farther. Not only do we see heterosexual couples in bed, but now we see homosexual couples in bed. And so I think, you know, that's just, and that's what, in 50 years or 40 years? I mean, that's come a long way from where we were. So I think it would be the same thing with the humanist point of view. I think as you start to take out those moral and religious values, we water down things, and I think, you know, eventually those would be non-existent, unfortunately.
That's a good point. I think you're right. I think that eventually it would come to a point where, like, religion, where, like, morals are so loose that just anybody can just decide what it is to be moral. And I mean, even now, I mean, it's so crazy how much, like, even now, right and wrong is just like a dotted line. You know, it's not. It's in our society. I mean, everyone would agree that murder is wrong, but there are people even, like, discussing whether or not, you know, I mean, drugs and things like that. And I think that that is kind of crazy, just because it's like, I don't understand how you could think this is right, but people do. They think that if that's what I want to do, then it's right. And I'm like, but it can still be, but I guess people don't see, like, if that's what they want to do, they think it's right, whether or not it's wrong.
Right. And it's kind of like you said, they agree that murder is wrong, but at the same time they support abortion and euthanasia. How, you know, that's a contradiction there. How can you support that murder is wrong, but also agree that you should be able to check yourself out of this life if you feel like it, or that, you know, conception is not a conceived life isn't a human life or whatever. So yeah, that's kind of, I think it would just continue to be watered down and eventually be eroded away.
I'm like really glad that during our little debate that you didn't keep going on the abortion thing, because in this class all the time my like running theme for all of the papers and stuff has been abortion. So I'm like, I can't argue against it now. I have no idea how. Don't go on.
Yeah, Allison and mine has been on that too. So yeah, I was like, okay, I'm gonna back off there because that one's touchy, especially with LDS folks, because we don't believe that at all. So it's hard to defend abortion when it's totally.
I did so hard. I was like, oh my gosh, no, don't ask another question about it because I can't continue on about it.
I know. So you did great, though. Well, that was good for the three of us, and I'm glad everybody showed up that did show up.
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness, that was so hard because like she was trying to get on this whole time, and then I think she just gave up after a while because her husband stopped texting me, and so then I was just like, well, okay. So then I had to do all of the spokespersons.
I know you did great, though. You really did.
All right, guys.
All right, this concludes it. I guess just put the link up, and we'll see you guys in class.
All right, sounds good.
Do we have another Google Hangout next week, maybe? I don't know.
I got an email. I don't think we have Google Hangouts next week, but like all the other assignments will proceed as follows. Not an email. It was in so like there's due in 2 weeks, and then there's like your grades, your classes, and all this, and then down there's like announcements and stuff, and it was under announcements.
But
there's no more Google Hangouts?
We don't have one this week because of the holiday.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All the other assignments proceed as regular.
Let's see. Okay, your instructor will put you into small groups. This is our group, I guess. Oh, we can probably stop recording.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop recording.